Every crisis begins the same way. Markets fall, jobs vanish, savings shrink, and then something strange happens. While millions lose, a small group quietly gets rich. Not by accident, not by luck, by design. Here's the mystery we're going to follow today. Who decides which fortunes are destroyed and which are created when everything breaks? Because in every major collapse, the pattern repeats. Different century, different crisis, same winners. In early market history, crises were simple. Bad harvests, wars, trade collapses. When economies fell, everyone suffered together. There were no bailouts, no safety nets, no central banks. If a merchant failed, he failed. If a bank collapsed, it disappeared. But that world created a problem. Crises were unpredictable. Governments couldn't control them. And elites couldn't reliably survive them. So a new idea emerged. What if crises could be managed? By the 19th century, central banking began to change the rules. Institutions like the Bank of England and later the Federal Reserve were created to stabilize financial systems during panics. At least that was the public story. In reality, something more subtle happened. When panic hit, central banks became lenders of last resort, buyers of last resort, and deciders of which institutions survived. This introduced a new power into history, the power to select winners during collapse. Crises were no longer purely economic events. They became policy events. To understand who gets rich in crises, you need to understand timing. When markets crash, assets fall in price. Credit dries up. Fear dominates. But central banks intervene in stages. First, they cut rates. Then, they inject liquidity. Then, they buy assets. Those who have access to cheap credit first buy assets at the bottom, large banks, major funds, connected institutions. By the time help reaches workers and small businesses, prices have already recovered. Losses are socialized. Recoveries are privatized. The first modern demonstration came in the 1930s. The stock market collapsed. Banks failed by the thousands. Unemployment exploded. First, there was no intervention. But then came emergency programs. Liquidity to banks. Support to key institutions. New financial rules. Small banks vanished. Large banks absorbed them. Wealth concentrated. By the end of the Depression, fewer institutions controlled more assets than ever before. Crisis didn't destroy power. It consolidated it. Fast forward to 2008, housing collapses, Lehman fails, markets freeze. This time, central banks moved instantly. Trillions in bailouts, zero interest rates, massive asset purchases, stock markets hit record highs, billionaire wealth exploded. Real wages stagnated. Those who owned assets recovered first. Those who depended on wages recovered last. After every crisis, leaders promise reform, more regulation, stronger oversight. But the core mechanism never changes. Because the system depends on centralized credit creation, emergency interventions, and asset-based rescues. As long as crises are managed through financial markets, wealth will flow to those closest to the source of money. This is not ideology, it's math. In 2020, the pattern repeated at record speed. Within weeks, trillions were created. Markets were rescued. Asset prices surged. At the same time, small businesses closed. Debt exploded. Inequality widened. By 2022, the richest households held a larger share of wealth than ever recorded. Crisis had once again done its work. So who decides who gets rich during crises? It's not a secret group, not a conspiracy. A system. A system where credit flows first to the largest institutions. Asset owners benefit before workers. Losses are absorbed publicly. Gains remain private. The invisible hand is not the market. It's the crisis response itself. Crises do not distribute losses evenly. Access to credit determines recovery speed. Every major crisis concentrates wealth upward. Crises don't just test economies. They reveal power structures. And as long as rescues favor assets over labor, the same invisible hand will keep deciding the same winners. The question isn't whether another crisis will come. It's who will be positioned to benefit when it does.